Today, we're going to talk about something that's incredibly complex and honestly often misunderstood. We're going to explore the journey of healing after being the other woman in an affair. Think of this as a guide, really, a path forward through what can be a very painful and lonely experience, drawing on the real stories of people who've been there. And this quote, wow, it just hits right at the heart of it, doesn't it? It captures that feeling of losing your own identity, the sense that you look in the mirror and don't even recognize yourself anymore. That's a devastating feeling, and it's a huge piece of what we're going to unpack today.
So here's our roadmap. First, we're going to step into what's called the secret world of an affair. Then, we'll get real about the psychological toll it takes and talk about the tough but totally necessary step of ending it. After that, we'll walk through the stages of healing. And finally, we'll get to the most important part, reclaiming your future.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. We have to acknowledge the reality of this situation. Being the other woman means living this divided life, a life you have to navigate in secret, in the shadows. And that secrecy, it's not just hiding a relationship. It creates this incredibly isolating and emotionally tangled world. The experience is so much more than just the feelings involved. It's fundamentally shaped by that secrecy and this constant nagging uncertainty. Being in a relationship with no clear future creates this undercurrent of fear and anxiety that's just an enormous weight to carry all by yourself. And this is the emotional roller coaster that keeps the whole thing going. The highs can be incredibly high. You're filled with hope, you feel like you found your soulmate, but those lows, man, they are crushing. The jealousy, the chipping away at your self-worth, and that deep, profound lack of stability. And that roller coaster, it doesn't just exist in a vacuum. Over time, that constant up and down, that push and pull, it takes a serious psychological toll. These are the hidden costs, the long-term damage that secrecy can cause. And the effects are just devastating. You've got guilt and shame which get amplified by how society views these things. The secrecy itself breeds this intense isolation and loneliness. All of that stress can easily spiral into depression, that loss of identity we talked about, and even leave you feeling totally cynical about love and relationships in the future. This quote really gets me. It frames the whole experience as pain management. Think about that. All the energy that should be going into your own growth, your career, your friendships, it's all being redirected to just surviving the affair. It basically hollows you out from the inside. So when you're faced with all that pain and that sense of loss, the big question is, where do you even start? How does healing actually begin after something so profound? Well, the journey has to start with one very difficult but absolutely essential action. The path to healing can only truly begin when the affair ends. But here's the thing, the ending is rarely neat and tidy. It often comes with its own trauma, its own confusion, especially if the relationship gets exposed suddenly and harshly. This often happens on what's called D-Day, Discovery Day. The moment the wife finds out, the affair partner's priority snaps into damage control with his family. And that can lead to a really abrupt, cold end to the affair. Sometimes a harsh text message sent while his wife is standing right there. It feels like this ultimate betrayal on top of all the other pain. So, whether the end is forced by D-Day or it's your own choice, a clean break is absolutely essential. And look, this isn't about punishing anyone, it's about your survival. You have to establish a firm no-contact rule to create the mental and emotional space you need to even begin to heal. Okay, so once that space is there, once there's silence, the real work can finally begin. And it's so important to understand that healing is not a straight line. It's way more like peeling an onion. With every layer you peel back, you uncover a new level of emotion, a new level of understanding. So this is a pretty common path, though everyone's journey is different. It can start with numbness or just intense grief. That's often followed by a period of just trying to find answers. Then comes anger as you start to have these big realizations. And that leads to the really important work of setting boundaries and finally rebuilding your self-respect. Let's just zoom in on that seeking answers stage for a sec. After the initial shock wears off, you just have this intense need to understand what happened. This is when you start to really deconstruct the whole thing, questioning his motives, your motives, and for the first time, you see the relationship from outside of its intense, intoxicating bubble. This quote just nails that whole peeling the onion idea. You might feel like you're moving backwards when a huge wave of grief hits you again, months later. But it's actually a sign of progress. It means you're tapping into a deeper layer of the experience with a new, clearer perspective.
And that's a necessary part of truly healing.
And that brings us to the final and honestly the most empowering part of this entire journey, moving from just healing to becoming whole again. The focus shifts now. It's less about looking back at what you lost and all about looking forward to what you're going to build. This is where you take your life back. And reclaiming yourself, that's an active process. It means getting back in touch with your own values and deciding what you really want in a relationship. It means doing the hard work of forgiving yourself, of practicing real self-care, and leaning on your support system, friends, a therapist, support groups. You don't have to do this alone. If you take away only one thing today, please let it be this. This experience is something you went through. It is not who you are. This was a chapter in your life. It is not your whole story. And letting go of that shame, that is the ultimate act of taking back your power. You know, the past is written. We can't change it. But the future, that's a completely blank page. This whole healing journey, as incredibly hard as it is, has done one amazing thing. It has put the pen back in your hand. So the only question that matters now is, what story are you going to write for yourself?